Welcome to the Same Day Podcast, where we discuss driving incremental business growth and other topics related to real estate, property management, and entrepreneurship. Now to the show at hand.
Matt Zalk here. I'm the host of the Same Day Podcast, where I connect with top business leaders and real estate experts. Past guests include Devin Howland talking about the economic development work that's happening in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Yoni Schmidt of the Keyrenter team talking about property owners' frequently asked questions. And we had Kevin Evans of Liberty Air on the show talking about HVAC systems and how they work and why they're so darn complicated. Today's episode is brought to you by Chris Lyle State Farm. Chris Lyle State Farm helps you protect your most precious assets and investments, whether it's your home and auto, investment rental properties, or other valuables. Call Chris Lyle State Farm for a quick and painless phone call that can potentially save you double digits on all of your insurance needs. Visit diallyle.com. That's DIALLILE.com, or call his office at 918-878-7771. Today's episode is also brought to you by Keyrenter Property Management. At Keyrenter Property Management, we are a full-service property management company helping our clients buy, renovate, and operate real estate assets. We help our clients build wealth while taking the headache out of property management. Casper, you know this from today's world. It's really hard to line up contractors, but something that we do at Keyrenter is help our clients line up the contractors in advance of doing a unit turn so that we can do a unit turn very quickly. Contractors seem busy these days. Work seems to drag on forever, but at Keyrenter, we get these guys lined up in advance so that we can do the work quickly and get more money back into the pockets of our owners. That's why it doesn't matter what rental you have, a single family home, conventional or on the Section 8 program, which is what we're talking about today, a condo, a townhome, an apartment, we have the management solutions that you need. Go to keyrenterpmc.com or info@keyrenterpmc.com. Casper Palmer is our guest today. Casper is the inspection director for the Tulsa Housing Authority, known colloquially as the THA. That's how we talk about it. Casper's been at the THA for more than 20 years. Casper, you wouldn't give me a specific number. I suspect you don't want to age yourself maybe, but 20 plus years is a long time. We respect that. And I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
Let's start with the basics. For our listeners that don't know what the program is, can you tell us what the Section 8 program is?
The Section 8 program is to help low-income families with a place to reside. My department, the inspections department, our goal is to provide safe, a structurally safe and sound unit for our tenants.
Got it. Landlords often have so many questions related to Section 8, and some of those questions cause them to kind of back off of participating in the program. And today we want to assuage some of those concerns, shed light on some of the key questions, the frequently asked questions that landlords or owners have when they're considering joining the program and accepting Section 8 residents and voucher holders in essence. But let's start with inspections specifically. That's your department. That's what you know best. When does a landlord that's participating in the Section 8 housing program need an inspection?
Okay, so that's a great question, Matt. So there are several types of inspections. The first type to actually get the tenant in the unit is the move-in or initial inspections. Once the landlord fills out the RFTA and the worker or the housing coordinator goes through the paperwork, okays everything, and then she will send it to my department and request an inspection. And that would be the move-in or the initial. And then the next type after the initial would be a biannual. Bi means two, which it will happen not every 24 months because within the federal guidelines of HUD, we actually have to go through each unit on a biannual, and then by that 24th month, that unit has to either pass or fail finally. So if my department waited for the 24th month, we would be out of compliance with it. So therefore, we actually back that up So we will come out every 15 to 16 months.
Got it.
So the 24 months is there, but it's not all up front because you remember, or if you do not know, most biannual re-inspections, we will give you a 28-day period there. So if you say 15 to 16 months, and then that's another 30 days there, that's 17 months, and then you allow for the letters to get out. So it is 24 months, but it's not 24 months up front.
And then the third type?
The third type could be a complaint either from the owner or the tenant. And that would be if the tenant calls in and states that something's not working. I first will call the landlord if there's a number on file to ask him, hey, did you know about the refrigerator's not working or the air, just to give them a heads up. So by the time that one of my guys go out and actually look at it, hopefully the issue has been resolved and we can just move forward.
So you can pass it at that time and then no need to go back out.
Yes.
How does a landlord, or a tenant for that matter, but a landlord for the most part, get notified of an upcoming inspection?
Okay, so if it is a complaint, once again, there's several different types. Usually, the tenant calls in a complaint, and they leave a number. I will reach out to the tenant to actually try to set it up that way, because if we send the letter out, we have to give the letter at least 7 days to actually get to the tenant. So it is faster on a complaint to actually get in touch with the tenant to say, hey, I have someone in the area, and that is after I have spoken with the management. So hopefully all of that works as one. So when one of the guys get out to actually look at it, everything hopefully is repaired and we can move forward.
And so after you mentioned the RFTA earlier, which is the request for tenancy approval, if I'm not mistaken, that's that's the document that kicks off everything else downline from for the start of tenancy. But if an RFTA is submitted, how then do you get notified of an initial inspection on a property, or how are you notified for a compliance inspection, meaning that 24-month period, even though it's 15, you said, but that total period?
That's another great question, Matt. So on the initial, once the owner or the management resubmits the RFTA to the housing worker, or housing coordinator is the technical name, but to the tenant's housing coordinator worker, the housing coordinator will go over the location, the taxes, the square footage, the condition of the house, how much the owner is asking for, and there's quite a few more. She has to comp it out, as in how much is it actually really worth for the area? What the owner is paying for it. Once all of that is done and actually checks out, that's when the housing coordinator will request an inspection, send it to my department, and it appears on my screen. Now, with that being said, it usually takes the housing coordinators at least 2 weeks to get your RTA ready and actually send it to my department for an inspection. So, with that being said, the inspectors, once we receive it, we usually have it scheduled either that week or the next following week.
And what happens if you can't get in touch with the prospective tenant of the property for scheduling?
Okay, so as far as the initial, we will not contact the tenant at that time.
It comes to the management, landlord.
Yes, and the way that procedure works is that we will call the owner from the number that they supplied on the RFTA. We will call the owner, and if someone answers, okay, fine, we will set up something in. But if no one answers, we will leave a voicemail. That owner will have 24 hours to call that inspector back. If that owner does not call that inspector back to set up something, that inspector will send out a appointment letter for the move-in or the move-in in inspection at least 7 days out.
Got it. What happens then? So the owner receives a letter. Owner's there to meet the inspector at the property. What happens then if the inspection fails?
Okay, so if well, that's a great question also. What will fail the inspection right off without him even walking in? All utilities have to be on.
Got it.
And the
Very, very
reason
important.
why that is because we have to check all faucets, sinks, electrical, the furnace, and everything. So if the utilities are not on, we will not be able to check those, so it will fail. So if you do not have any utilities, that will fail you right off.
Got it.
Okay. So on a failed inspection, the inspector will send back out a letter, and on that letter, it will have a date that the owner has to call within 14 days to actually set up another inspection. Now, within those 14 days, all of the repairs has to be taken care of. But the letter that the inspector sends out, that is not a reinspection letter. That is just letting the owner know that within 14 days they have to call that inspector, and the inspector's name and number is in the lower left-hand corner. Call that inspector to actually reschedule an inspection.
Got it. So the onus is on the owner at that point to do the reinspection or to request a reinspection. THA doesn't proactively, again, having done it the first time, they don't proactively schedule a second inspection. It's on the owner, to be clear.
Correct. And the reason why that is because we will not know when the owner has made those repairs and were completed.
Right. What so you talked about the utilities having to be on, that being an instant fail if they're off. What are the other most common reasons that landlords fail the initial inspection?
Most common reasons. A loose toilet's not operating properly.
Meaning the toilet has to, it can't be wobbling on top of the tile.
Correct. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Matt. So, yes, the toilet has to be secured to the floor. Mm-hmm. The toilet cannot rock back and forth. And there's a way that the inspectors check the toilets. We actually face the toilet, and we take our opposite leg, put it on the opposite side of the toilet, and give it a slight nudge. And then for the same thing on the other side of the toilet, the opposite leg on the opposite side of the toilet, give it a slight nudge. If it does not move, you're fine.
Got it. What else are some common things that landlords fail for?
Windows. Windows are very important. As I stated earlier, my mission in the inspections department is to provide a safe and structural sound house for the tenant. So with that being said, I am big on health and safety. Mm-hmm. All windows should operate properly. We are hard on bedroom windows because that is the egress for the tenant, just in case there's a fire for the tenant to get out.
Yep. Okay, so toilets rocking back and forth, windows. Do you see a lot of paint chip, issues where paint needs to be repaired, or is that not a big deal?
Well, it is a big deal. However, most of the landlords that is on the program knows that peeling paint is a large issue, especially if they have a child that is 6 or under, because the lead-based paint now, they do not make paint any longer, lead-based paint. However, if your unit is built prior to 78 and you have peeling paint, and there's a child 6 or under on the lease, peeling paint, that is a must, because lead has will damage a child that is 6 or under's brain development.
Right.
So
Huge safety hazard.
Yes, that is something huge for peeling paint. So usually the owners, once they receive our letters, because we will not just show up, we will send a letter out. And when they receive the letter, they go out and do their walkthrough per se,
Right.
if you will, to
Right.
make sure there's no peeling paint. But peeling paint is a huge issue.
What do you see in terms of fails from electrical outlets, electrical panels, that sort of stuff?
Okay, so let's start with the panels. The thing that I see most common is a missing breaker or missing switch or missing fuse, screw in fuse.
Also,
All of
huge,
those,
huge, huge
yes,
safety hazard
yes.
for kids,
Well,
especially
Matt,
anybody.
as
But
well, you know, you were a young lad at one time, and
poking my fingers in things.
right, and I actually done it myself. You know, just boys are just busy,
Yeah.
and we find things to do. So that's the purpose of not having a missing breaker or anything. Now, with that being said, you could actually put a breaker in there, and the breaker does not have to work. It
Right.
just cannot be an open space.
Yeah. I mean, you can put your finger in there and get 200 amps or 150 amps directly to your body. That's not good at all. We got failed one time actually for there being incomplete sheetrock in the garage. And my question to the inspector, maybe I spoke to you about it, is basically if the tenant has the expectation of there being sheetrock in the garage and some of that sheetrock is missing, then that's a fail. But if there were to be no sheetrock in the garage, then that's also acceptable. So either way is acceptable. Yes. But if there's some sheetrock in the garage, the expectation is that the thing is partially finished and you have not brought it up to its normal standard. I mean, it's you know, the like you said with the window, I mean, it should function as designed. So the message is it's not functioning as designed because the rest of the garage is not sheetrock. Is that basically right?
Yes and no. Okay, so if you have sheetrock there and it is damaged, yes, you will fail for that. But sheetrock is not required inside the garage, or if it is loose or hanging or something like that, bulging or something like that. But it would be on a case by case basis. I would hate to say yes here and then we get out to someplace else and it's not a no-go.
Yeah.
But usually, rule of thumb, garages do not have to have drywall. However, if it is there, it has to be secured, no holes in it, and things like that.
But that's very interesting for people that have a little bit of sheetrock in their garage, but it's not finished out. They then have two options. One is finish it, make sure it looks good and it's not bulging, it's not cracked, it's not hanging off. Or before the initial inspection, they can just remove the sheetrock, and then they can it appears that there's no sheetrock. The expectation is that there's no sheetrock from the tenant, and that's also a passable solution, right?
Yes, sir. Correct.
So when we've done the what do you call the rolling 24-month inspection?
Biannuals.
The biannual. So when we've done the biannuals in the past, we've had things that we failed on. So landlord's responsible for fixing, this or that or the other. And we've also had things that the tenant's responsible for. Now, the tenant responsibility, to me, in my mind, kind of goes two ways, or there's two parts of it. One is tenant put a hole in the sheetrock. Let's talk about that for a second. But the other thing is there might be defects that it's not clear who caused the problem. So if a tenant breaks a window, for example, and we have evidence, like a tenant might reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm really sorry, but my ex-boyfriend came over last week and broke a window." That's a separate issue. It's unclear to the inspector who might be responsible for that. In the case of the sheetrock, if it's a tenant responsibility and the inspector marks it as tenant responsibility, what can an owner do to get that issue repaired?
Okay, so if the landlord makes a repair for the tenant, the landlord can actually charge the tenant for that repair. Now, most
but THA wouldn't pay for that. HUD wouldn't pay for that. Rather, it would be a direct tenant expense, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Most most uh most of the tenants, when they actually have a repair, they do not make the repairs. The owner makes the repairs. Most complexes will not allow a tenant to make repairs on their unit, or most private owners will not. They will make the repair and then charge the tenant directly, not housing authority, but the tenant, because the tenant is
Right.
it should be responsible for any damage that is done to the unit.
And then what about in the event that it's not so clear, right? I mean, a broken window, if the window was broken when the tenant moved into the property, it would not have passed the initial inspection. So on the
Correct.
biannual, if there's a window that's broken, how do we know whether it actually was the window was functioning, but it was functioning, kind of poorly. So it was hard for them to close it. Then they closed it too hard and it slammed and broke. And it's, the owner's, that's really a case where it's an owner's responsibility versus the
Yes.
tenant responsibility, which they put their hand through the window.
Yes, correct. You are correct. So the the window is not a good example because with a window you can if the window is not working properly, and say if you raise the window and it doesn't stay open and it just falls down and the
It would
window is
fail.
broken, yes, we would say, okay, the owner, yeah, it's you
Yeah.
because the window broke like that.
Right.
Now, if the window is broke from the inside, that would be on the tenant. The tenant done that. Now, if the window is broke from the outside, and the tenant is not owning up to it, uh, Casper was outside with the soccer ball and he kicked it and it went through the window. I'm like, Mom, but that would be on the tenant because
Right.
she's saying that Casper
Right.
broke the window with the soccer ball.
Yeah.
But if the inspector has no proof per se to what happened to the window,
Yeah.
he would just say owner repair window.
Got it. So in that case, they just fall on the owner and the owner would repair it and move on.
Yes. Now the owner can try to go after the tenant for the money,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's how we would determine who would be responsible to repair the window.
So many landlords are afraid that a tenant might damage the property and then move to another Section 8 property, meaning take their housing choice voucher and move to another property when it's their responsibility to have fixed some of the issues inside the house, like a hole in the sheetrock, for example. How does THA, your team, hold a tenant accountable for ensuring those repairs are actually made, whether it's charged to the tenant and paid for or directly made by the tenant?
Okay, so when the inspector goes out, he will determine if it is normal wear and tear or the tenant caused the damage. So when a tenant has repairs, and the tenant has not taken care of those repairs on the reinspection, we will not issue that tenant a voucher. Uh, every repair. So how we hold the tenant and the owner responsible. So the owner is held responsible through abatement
Mm-hmm.
because we're
Meaning THA stops making the payments on that property.
correct.
Got it.
Correct. So the way that we hold the tenant responsible is that if the tenant has repairs that the inspector failed this tenant on, and he goes back out to do the reinspection and the repairs were not completed, the inspector will send a waiver letter out to the tenant, and the tenant has two choices on that waiver letter. One choice is to ask for a hearing, and a hearing will consist of randomly chosen people within Tulsa Housing Authority to actually go through this tenant's file record to see if my department sent out all the proper documents and everything. And if that is so, uh, the tenant will lose their assistance. The second choice is that the tenant can sign and actually ask for a final inspection. And on that letter, that letter actually states that I understand this is my final chance, and if I do not pass this time, I am off the program. Uh,
Wow.
and that very waiver letter, we will send a copy of it to the owner so the owner will know exactly what is going on. Um, with that being said, the usually the tenants sign that letter and return it within the time allowed. With that being said, the inspector will send out the final appointment letter. We will go out. We will check those repairs. Now, if the tenants repairs are not done after the waiver letter, they're off the program also. Then,
Wow. That's a huge stick. I mean,
yes,
people want to stay on the program. There are hundreds and hundreds of people that are waiting to be accepted to the program. So losing your voucher is a significant blow, so to speak.
yes.
If the tenant does not make their repairs, does the house still go into abatement? Does
No,
the owner still lose their money?
no. As I just stated, uh, that's how we separate the uh, the one that is responsible. If
Got
the
it.
owner is responsible and his or her repairs has been taken care of, that's fine. We just move forward.
Right.
If the tenant has repairs that they did not take care of, we will not allow that tenant to. We will not issue that tenant a voucher, not until
To
those
move.
repairs are taken care of.
Got it. So one way that you find out to do a random inspection or a in between the biannual was because the tenant makes a complaint and says my heater's not working, my refrigerator's not working, etc. Can an owner also submit a complaint and say the tenant has caused damages in the property?
Yes, sir. That is a great question there, Matt. Okay, so most owners do not know that they can call in a complaint just as well as the tenant. So usually, the tenant has to give a 30-day notice prior to moving. So when they give that 30-day notice, that would probably be the time to call and say, "Hey, I'm tenant knocked a hole in the wall, they
Mm-hmm.
whatever." We
Mm-hmm.
will come out, we will write that tenant up for whatever, a hole or whatever, and we will put that move on hold until the tenant completes that repair list.
And what happens then if it's not clear who's responsible? So a tenant is not living a supremely clean lifestyle. They've got food out and whatever else, and now they've got pests in the home. Is that a landlord responsibility or is that a tenant responsibility?
Oh man, you are asking some great questions here today. Okay, so once again, once so if if a tenant has terrible housekeeping and we are called out for roaches, that would be on the tenant because the tenant caused this problem.
Right.
However, our rule of thumb here is that if a tenant lives in a single family standalone resident and the tenant has roaches or bed bugs, it's the tenant's responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because there's no unit adjacent to that unit to
Right.
where the roaches or bed bugs could actually crawl through the attic or over the
Right.
wall into her unit or
Right.
into his or her unit.
Yeah.
So the tenant would be responsible for any treatment like that. Now rodents, that's something different. Rodents, they can come from outside.
Sure.
That would be on the owner
Got it.
for rodents to plug the holes and actually treat for the rodents.
Very good to know.
So that's the thing about the single family resident. A single family resident has some regs that actually just only goes with a single family resident, as in roaches, bed bugs, things like that.
Right. When you talk to new landlords, of course, the Tulsa Housing Authority has an incentive to attract new landlords, right? I mean, you'd like to get more landlords. If you had a ton of more availability, you'd be able to issue more vouchers to some of those people that are waiting on the list, I guess. And that may or may not be true. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way I would think about it happening.
Yes, correct.
What are the greatest concerns or fears that new landlords have related to renting their homes, their single family residence, or their apartments on the Section 8 program? I mean, what do you hear?
Well, you touched on that earlier, Matt. It was that we actually allow the tenants to damage property
Right.
and actually move on. So when we hired our new landlord relations leader, Dina Irving, um, and they wanted me to speak with her concerning landlords and things like this. I broke it down simple, as in, uh, Matt, have you ever played Monopoly?
Yeah, of
Right.
course. Yeah.
Okay. So how how can a landlord or you, Matt, win at Monopoly if you don't know how to play the game?
Yeah, true. You got to know
True.
the rules.
Right. So I would say that the landlords have to know the rules to actually win at the game.
Right.
Now, they have been losing because they did not know the rules, as in they can call in a complaint also, and that's one of the main rules. The other one is that as a landlord, you should have a key to your unit.
Right.
Also, as a landlord, me personally, if I was a landlord, I would put in my lease that I would come in and change the filters. Now, you you don't have to. You can take filters over and actually have the tenant to change them. But look at the appliance that you're putting in the tenant's hand to actually keep up maintenance on.
Sure. It's a big deal.
And
Five,
yes,
six thousand dollars. Yep.
yeah, correct. So if they don't change the filter, that will ruin that furnace, and that would make the owner have to pay out more money.
Right.
However, if you go over every so often as an owner and just change the filter, change the battery in the smoke alarm, that will uh, um, allow you to have access to get inside just to see how they're living.
Right. How do landlords find out about, or how do they learn the rules of the game? To your point.
Well, they usually call and they're upset about something, and I try to inform them. Well, sir, you actually should have called this, or you actually can call this number. I ran into a landlord today, and I gave him my card, and he was like, "Man, I sure didn't know that. That is great to know." Uh,
I bet.
so I think that's the part that landlords do not understand or realize, that they have that ability to call in a complaint just as well as the tenants does.
Anything else that you can share with new real estate investors that are considering making a decision about whether they want to put their house on the housing choice voucher program, accept Section 8 tenants?
Well, I have touched on it all, but let's the recent one that I just touched on is that I would like the landlords to know that we are looking for partners, and that partnership comes with perks and benefits per se, if
Right.
you will. Your portion of the money from Tulsa Housing Authority will be in your account no later than the third or the fourth, I believe. Um, um, you you have options as far as making or having the tenant to actually uh, uh, not tear up your unit. I would ask the landlords with not that many units, if you do have units, if you feel that a tenant is uh, tearing up your unit, I would ask you to drive past there on a Friday or Saturday night. You actually don't even have to stop. Just drive past there, and you will see how the tenant is living, and
Mm-hmm.
then you will say, well, okay, then let me try to gain access to actually go farther, because
Mm-hmm.
you will know if the lawn is mowed, if they're parking in the yard, if the yard is trashy, if
Mm-hmm.
the window is broken out, or what. All I ask is for the landlords to do their portion as far as managing the units. And you can get in touch with me anytime if you need any questions answered or advice or anything like that. It actually is a great program. And during downtime, during the COVID, it was a little bit more consistent. We were
Absolutely.
We were actually trying to get new landlords on. We were giving out bonuses and things like that. At one time, we was giving out, I think it was $1,000 to $1,500 bonus for new landlords. So there is a great benefit for it. You just have to know
the rules of the game.
Yes, correct.
Casper, how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more, ask questions, understand the rules of the game?
My email address is Casper with a C .Palmer@tulsahousing.org, or my direct number to my desk is 918-581-5791.
There you have it, folks. Casper Palmer on the show today is the inspection director for the Tulsa Housing Authority. Casper's been at the THA for 20 plus years. He's a native of Tulsa. Casper, we really appreciate you being on the show and helping our landlords understand more about how they can participate in the program and avoid some of the pitfalls.
Thank you, Matt. I hope that this informed a lot of landlords. We actually do need a lot of more partners. We are trying to help the homeless population get housed, and your participation with the THA would be greatly appreciated.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Matt. You also, sir.
Thanks for listening to the Same Day Podcast. Tune in to a new show each week and be sure to subscribe to get future episodes.